You know that specific nagging feeling when something happens? Like maybe a weird comment from a coworker, or you get some sudden ambiguous news
Mm.
and you react, but you don't actually know how you feel about it.
Oh, absolutely. It's that strange numbness right after the impact.
And then, like 3 days later, you're in the shower or you're stuck in traffic and suddenly it hits you like a freight train. You go, oh, wait, I wasn't sad, I was furious.
Right.
Or actually, I wasn't angry, I was just embarrassed.
It's the classic staircase wit.
Wait,
The French have a name for it, l'esprit de l'escalier.
what's that?
It's thinking of the perfect comeback or the perfect realization only after you've left the party and you're already walking down the stairs.
Exactly. But here's the thing, and this is what we're digging into today. We usually beat ourselves up for that. We treat that delay like a bug in the system.
Oh, totally.
We think, why am I so slow? Why didn't I get it in the moment? We live in a culture that values the instant hot take.
We do. We reward speed. If you don't have an opinion instantly, the assumption is you don't understand the situation.
No.
We equate fast with smart.
But today, we are going to flip that idea completely on its head.
Yeah.
We've been reading through this fascinating stack of notes on a philosophy called reflective humanism, specifically a section labeled Thesis 7.6.
Mm-hmm.
And the mission for this deep dive is to ask a pretty radical question. What if that delay isn't a failure of intelligence? What if it's actually a structural requirement of consciousness?
It's a really comforting thought, isn't it? The source material argues that we are fundamentally misunderstanding the architecture of emotion.
How so?
We think feelings are for instant clarity,
Yeah.
but reflective humanism suggests they are actually designed for delayed understanding.
Okay, so let's unpack this.
Yeah.
The core observation here seems simple enough. Some feelings only make sense later.
Right.
But the source takes this huge leap and says that's not an accident, it's a feature.
It's a feature, not a bug. And to really grasp this, we have to look at how this philosophy views human existence. Usually, we see the world as a series of fixed points.
What do you mean by point?
Like, I am happy right now. That's a point. I am sad. That's a point. This is good. This is bad. We want to drop a pin on the map.
We want coordinates. We want to know exactly where we stand at all times.
Precisely. But reflective humanism argues that existence isn't a map of points. It's a trajectory. It's an orbit. The text says, reflective humanism prioritizes gradient over evaluation and orbit over conclusion.
Gradient over evaluation. That sounds a little abstract. Help me visualize that.
Yeah, let's try. Think of it almost like in physics. A point is static. It has no direction, right?
It's just there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if you force yourself to define that point immediately, to say, okay, I am angry, you actually kill the movement.
You start the process.
You stop the process.
Yeah.
But a gradient, well, that's a slope. It's a rate of change. It implies you're moving towards something.
So if I rush to a conclusion, it's like stopping a movie 10 minutes in and saying, okay, I know the ending, let's go home.
And then wondering why the plot didn't make sense.
Yeah.
You've cut off the data stream. The source uses a very specific term for this process of movement. Recursion.
Yeah, this word came up a lot in the notes. Recursion, I usually hear that in computer science, is like a loop, right? A function that calls itself.
In this context, yes. It's a loop, but it's a spiral.
Yeah.
It's not just repeating the same thought over and over. That's rumination, which is stuck.
Okay.
Recursion is looping back to process the same information, but at a deeper level of analysis each time. The text defines complex emotions not as instant reactions, but as recognition devices requiring recursion.
Recognition devices requiring recursion. Okay, that's a dense phrase. What does that mean for me on a Tuesday afternoon when I'm feeling that 3-day delayed anger?
It means that the initial emotion, that flash of heat or that knot in your stomach, that is not the answer.
Uh-huh.
That is just the data download. That is the start of the file transfer.
Okay, that is actually a huge relief. Because I think a lot of us feel that if we're confused or numb in the moment, we're failing. But you're saying that confusion is just the loading bar.
Exactly. You are in the intake phase. You haven't run the software yet. And this brings us to what I think is the most actionable part of this deep dive. The structure of that loop. The source breaks this down into 4 distinct phases.
I saw this in the notes. It's almost like a roadmap for processing reality.
It is. And once you see these 4 phases, you realize that confusion isn't a state of being. It's just a location on the map.
All right, walk us through them. Where do we start?
Phase 1 is what we've been talking about, the immediate reaction. This is purely somatic body and raw emotion.
Yeah.
Fear, discomfort, a sudden laugh, a flinch. This is raw data entry.
Right, the gut punch. No logic yet, just impact.
Correct. Now, here's where it gets difficult. Phase 2. The source calls this suspension or stagnation.
Okay.
It describes it as remaining in a state where meaning cannot be assigned.
This is the worst phase. This is that part where you just feel blank or numb. Or you're staring at the wall trying to figure out what just happened and you come up with nothing.
And this is the phase we try to rush through. We hate the silence. We think silence means we are stupid or that nothing is happening. But the text calls this the rationality of absence.
The rationality of absence. That's poetic, but what is rational about feeling blank?
It suggests that this silence is actually part of the machinery. It's the empty workspace required for the signal to bounce around. If you fill that silence with a hot take or a forced opinion, you block the recursion. You clutter the desk before you've even opened the file.
So phase 2 isn't nothing. It's holding space.
Yes. It's staying with the trouble, as some philosophers might say. You have to let the data sit there without forcing a label on it.
Which is incredibly hard to do in the age of social media, where if you don't have a reaction in 5 seconds, you're irrelevant.
Exactly. We are socially conditioned to skip phase 2. But if you can survive the silence, you get to phase 3, reinterference.
Reinterference. That sounds like physics again.
It is. Interference happens when two waves meet like ripples in a pond. In phase 3, that initial raw data from phase 1 finally loops back and crashes into your memory, your past experiences, your values, other perspectives. It starts to mix.
This is the sleeping on it part.
Exactly. Your
Okay.
brain is running the simulation against everything else you know. It's checking for patterns. Does this comment remind me of my father? Is this fear rational based on what happened last year?
Yeah.
That's the interference pattern being built.
And finally,
Phase 4, phase alignment. This is what we call understanding.
the aha moment.
Yes, the conviction. The moment the waves line up and amplify each other.
Right.
You say, oh, I wasn't sad. I was angry because he disrespected my time.
Wow.
That clarity. That is phase 4. But, and this is the key, you cannot get to phase 4 without surviving the silence of phase 2 and the messiness of phase 3.
This is huge. Because we usually judge ourselves based on phase 4. We think if we aren't there, we're failing. But we actually live mostly in phase 2 and 3. We treat the middle like it's a defect, but it's actually the work.
That's it. The middle is the work.
Now, what's really compelling in these notes is how they apply this structure to specific emotions. They don't just say feelings take time. They differentiate between, say, anger, laughter, and fear based on how they handle this loop.
It's a fascinating breakdown. It treats emotions almost like different software programs running on the same hardware.
So let's talk about anger first. The notes describe anger as a blocked recursion. That felt really specific.
Right. Think about when you get really, truly self-righteously angry. Not just annoyed, but angry. Often, it's because you are refusing to loop back. You stay in phase 1, the reaction, and you solidify it.
They lock it down.
You lock it down. You refuse to let new information mix with your memory or other perspectives.
That makes so much sense. Anger feels rigid. It feels like a wall. I am right, you are wrong, end of story. There's no spiral there. It's a straight line.
Exactly. It stops at the collision. It prioritizes the point over the orbit.
It's very satisfying in the short term because it feels like certainty.
Sure.
But it's often a false certainty because it hasn't passed through the interference of phase 3. It hasn't been tested against the rest of your mind.
Now, contrast that with laughter. The Force describes laughter as a phase jump. I love this concept.
Isn't that great? A phase jump.
What does that mean mechanically?
It's a shortcut, a glitch in the matrix, but, in a good way. Something happens phase 1, and instead of trudging through the silence and the heavy analysis, your brain just leaps instantly to a new perspective or release.
Oh, that explains why we laugh when we're nervous or when something is totally absurd. We just skip the processing.
We skip the heavy lifting. It's a relief valve. When the data is too weird or too contradictory to process linearly, the brain just jumps to the end and releases the energy as laughter. It's an efficient way to close the loop without solving the problem. But then we have the main focus of this deep dive, fear, or that deep gnawing unease. The text says fear is ongoing recursion.
Yes. This is the heavy hitter. If you are afraid or if you have that sense of anxiety that won't go away, it means the loop is still open. The work is still happening.
You haven't landed yet.
You haven't landed. And I think that's so important for listeners to hear. If you are still anxious about a decision or a conversation, it doesn't mean you're weak. It means your system is still in phase 3. You are re-interfering. You're still crunching the numbers.
You are in the middle of the calculation.
Precisely. And the source argues that we need to grant ourselves the ethics of time. We need to allow that loop to close on its own schedule. not on society's schedule.
Yeah.
You cannot force the interference pattern to settle.
It's like waiting for muddy water to clear. You can't stick your hand in and push the dirt down.
No.
You just have to wait.
And that waiting is active. It's not
Yeah.
passivity, it's processing.
Which brings us to a really practical application of this, because we don't just do this to ourselves, we do this to other people all the time.
We do. This is where the concept of asynchronous recursion comes in.
Asynchronous recursion. Okay, that sounds like a networking error. Translate that for us.
It sounds complex, but it's a dynamic everyone has experienced. Imagine you and I are having a disagreement. I might be at phase 4. I've thought about this for days. I've stewed on it. I've processed it. I've reached my conclusion. I have clarity.
And I'm hearing it for the first time, so I'm at phase 1. I'm just getting the raw data.
Exactly. I am at the end of my loop, and you are at the beginning of yours. But because I'm human and impatient, I expect you to understand me instantly.
Right.
I expect you to be at phase 4 with me. And when you aren't, when you're silent in phase 2 or defensive in phase 1, I get frustrated. I say, you're not listening to me.
Wow, that is every argument I've ever had with partner. Why don't you get this? It's so clear to me.
But it's only clear to you because you've done the recursion. It's a tragedy of timing, not of intent. The source calls this transparent pain.
Transparent pain. That's a haunting phrase.
It describes the friction caused by the difference in speed between the external world, or the other person, and your internal operating system. You can see the disconnect, but you can't bridge it instantly. It's transparent because the reason is obvious. We are out of sync, but it's painful because we can't force the sync.
So if I'm the one who's ahead in the loop, what am I supposed to do? Just wait.
The reflective humanism approach suggests the ethical thing to do, the kind thing to do, is to recognize that lag, to say, I have laid this information on you, now I must wait for your recursion to run.
The notes mention the ethics of distance, or quiet ethics. It's basically giving people the grace of a delay.
Yes, it's the idea that when we interact, especially in conflict, we shouldn't be trying to force a conclusion. We should be like a diagnosis atmosphere, just observing, reflecting back, allowing the other person to find their own phase 4.
That's a beautiful way to put it, being an atmosphere rather than a hammer. But let's be real, it's hard. Especially when you want an answer now.
It is incredibly hard. It requires suppressing your own ego, which wants validation immediately. But remember the alternative. If you force a conclusion before the recursion is done, what do you get? You get a collision.
You get a broken spiral.
Right. And the source makes a really crucial distinction here between collision generation and question generation.
Okay.
Collisions force an update through impact like a car crash. It works, in a way. You definitely get a reaction. But it causes damage. It generates heat.
I'm gonna yell until you agree with me. That's a collision.
Exactly. Questions, on the other hand, generate a gradient, a gentle slope.
So by asking a question or by waiting, you're creating a slide for the person to move down rather than pushing them off a cliff.
Exactly. You are inviting their recursion to continue rather than arresting it. And this applies internally, too. Self-compassion in this framework is simply realizing that your internal OS has a speed limit. You cannot force the aha moment. You can only maintain the conditions for it to arrive.
I love that phrasing, maintaining the conditions. It reminds me of gardening. You can't pull the plant up to make it grow faster.
No.
That just kills it. You just water it, make sure the soil is okay, and wait.
That is a perfect analogy. And the silence of phase 2, that uncomfortable stagnation we talked about, that is just the winter. It's necessary for the spring. Nothing grows without the dormancy period.
So if we take a step back and look at this reflective humanism as a whole, it's really about changing our relationship with time and certainty.
It is. We live in an age of information overload. We are bombarded with data that demands an immediate reaction, like this post, share this news, outrage, joy, hot take.
It's exhausting. It feels like my brain is constantly hyperventilating.
It's unsustainable.
Yeah,
It destroys the recursive loop. We're becoming a society stuck in phase 1 perpetual reaction, with no phase 3 reflection and certainly no phase 4 wisdom. This philosophy is an invitation to slow down the spin, to say, I am currently in a state of suspension, and that is a valid place to be.
It's permission to be unresolved.
Yes. And to trust that the resolution will come if you respect the structure. The orbit will eventually complete its path. You don't have to steer the planet. Gravity does the work.
This makes me think, we have to wrap up soon, but I want to touch on this. We've talked about this as a very human internal process. But these notes also talk about how we judge each other for this.
Oh, constantly. We have no patience for someone else's process.
So this framework, it's not just for self-compassion, it's also a tool for compassion for others.
It has to be. The ultimate takeaway is that you aren't broken because you're confused,
Mm.
and that other person isn't stupid because they don't get it yet.
They're just processing.
They're just processing. The delay isn't the bug. The delay is the structure.
I feel like I need to go apologize to my past self for all the times I got mad at me for not knowing what I wanted instantly.
We all do.
Yeah.
But now you have the framework. You can identify the phase. Next time you feel that blank numbness, you can say, oh, this is phase 2. This sucks, but it's part of the flight plan.
This is phase 2. This sucks, but it's part of the flight plan. I'm going to put that on a sticky note.
It's a good mantra.
Before we wrap up, I want to circle back to that idea of questions versus collisions.
Yes.
The source material actually ends with a request. It asks us, and by us I mean us here in the deep dive and you listening, not to end with a summary.
Right, because a summary is a point. It stops the movement. It says, we are done thinking. Here is the answer.
And we want to keep the recursion running. We want to leave you, the listener, in the middle of your own loop. We want you to take this out into the world.
So instead of a goodbye or a click like and subscribe, we leave you with a provocation, a question designed to check your own internal speed.
We're going to ask this, and then we're just going to let it hang there. No music, no sign-off, just the question.
So as you go about your day, stop and ask yourself this.
Which emotion am I forcing to be understood too early?